Hi everyone, I'm Jim Miller for the Real Football Network. Well, let's dive into the college game. It'll be a Thursday nighter. How about the 20th ranked Cal Bears as they get set to take on UCLA and Jim Mora Jr. A lot of injuries from UCLA's side, and you look at the Cal Bears, they want to rebound. They're coming off a bye, but man, that was just a brutal loss to Utah with their star quarterback who is highly ranked, supposedly coming out in the NFL draft. He threw 5 interceptions is what he's going to have to rebound from. So let's start with the Cal Bears. Let's talk about Jared Goff, the quarterback. He's a junior, listed at 6'4", 210 pounds. You definitely see that. He needs to put some weight on his frame. Good release in the system that he's in. Quick feet, wide base, and how he throws it. Has a very good arm, but I think he can get stronger when he puts on some weight. 5 interceptions. Obviously, that's concerning, and it happened in the first half against Utah. Yeah, he should be able to rebound. He's a 3-year starter. He's seen a lot of defenses, and we'll see where it goes with Jared Goff. But in terms of comparisons, here's who I compare him to. He looks exactly like Nick Foles of the St. Louis Rams. That's my breakdown of him. And then in terms of athleticism, I'd put him in the same spot. I think Nick Foles actually has an advantage in terms of the athleticism. But in compared to Connor Cook of Michigan State, it's not even close. Jared Goff is not even in the same stratosphere of Connor Cook of Michigan State. He's a better athlete, has a bigger arm, has many more intangibles and more starts and wins in big games Connor Cook has than Jared Goff. So that's kind of where I see it. But remember that comparison. I compare Goff to Nick Foles of the St. Louis Rams. Let's talk about the running back, Danny Laskow. He's been coming back from an injury. He's been dealing with a strained hip. He had a breakout year. He's a redshirt senior, 6 foot, 210 pounds. Had a breakout year, as I mentioned, as a junior. Over 1,100 yards, 33 receptions, had 12 rushing touchdowns, but has been slowed by this hip injury. You know, is he a system guy? I can't figure out where he's going to fit. In terms of the running backs, everybody has him ranked in the top 20 running backs. I've seen him as high as 7. I don't know if that's really in the cards for Daniel Laskow, but I do think he's very good in space for how big he is. Kind of, like the Northern Iowa kid last year, David Johnson, who was drafted by the Arizona Cardinals, but that means he's a mid-rounder, I think, when you're looking at Daniel Laskow. Next guy, let's look at Jordan Rigsby, offensive guard, 6'4", 305. Here's what I love about him. He's got that wrestling background, so he's ready to mix it up with anybody. Very good with his hands. Will fight you and get you to the ground pretty quickly, but of course, limited ability. So again, that's why he's going to be a day 3 pick, but keep your eye. He's got an edge to him, and he's a guy that will fight every single down in the NFL. And that's what you want. You want guys that are going to go out there and get in a fist fight up front on the offensive line. UCLA, a ton of injuries that we talked about. Let's get into them. First guy we don't have to worry about injury is defensive tackle Kenny Clark. This guy's the real deal. Junior, 6'3", 308 pounds. He's going to be one of the top defensive tackles drafted in the 2016 NFL Draft. The guy has explosion. He's got burst. He's strong at the point of attack. He can anchor. He can move from sideline to sideline for a defensive tackle. How do you know that? Because Jim Mora Jr. is even putting him on offense. This guy caught a touchdown last week against Virginia because he's that good of an athlete. So look for him. The guy's the real deal. That's all I can say in terms of where he's ranked. Miles Jack, let's get into him. He's a very interesting player. He has left UCLA to get ready to enter the 2016 NFL Draft. And again, what is he? He's a junior, 6'1", 232 pounds. Jim Moore Jr. has put him at running back. He's played outside linebacker. He's played inside backer. He's played cornerback. He's played safety. If he's a running back in the NFL, if that's how they see him, I would stay at 230 pounds if I were Miles Jack. What I project him as is as a linebacker in the NFL in a 3-4 defense. If he plays outside, he's going to have to beef up to 240 or more, 245 or more if he plays outside. If he plays inside strong, he's going to be 240. Inside weak, he needs to stay at the weight he's at right now, and kind of like him at that position because he can move. He's great in coverage, great with his hands, and very instinctual in that position to go to the ball and get interceptions, which he's logged a couple of at UCLA. Very interesting prospect when you look at Miles Jack, and even Jim Moore Jr. talked about, and I tend to agree with him. He's only got 3 games on tape. It'd be interesting to see where teams rate him right now with only 3 games, because according to Jim Mora, a lot of teams are going to take the sure thing. They're not going to take a draft pick or waste a draft pick on a potential guy that that is not a guaranteed solid guy. And so he'll be checked out in terms of the medical. He's dealing with a torn meniscus, an anterior cruciate meniscus is how it's being labeled as. So we'll see where the medical is because he's got 4 to 6 months to heal up. Next guy we need to talk about is the defensive tackle, also is going to be dealing with an injury. Eddie Vanderdoes. Very solid guy when teamed up with Clark. These guys are tremendous at stopping the run. He can anchor, but unfortunately for him, he tore his ACL. When did he do it? He tore his ACL going to congratulate his teammate, believe it or not, Clark, in the end zone after that touchdown catch. So he's going to be out a significant amount of time. You'll be able to come back next year, reevaluate him in 2016 because he will obviously stay in school. Next guy we need to talk about, cornerback, Fabian Moreau, senior, 5'11", 195 pounds, day 2 prospect. Very good in man coverage, very good hands, even though he doesn't have a lot of interceptions that he's logged. Can turn and run with wide receivers. Here's another medical, though, dealing with the Liz Frank injury. Very cautious with this injury. Guys do not come back and are as explosive as what they once were. Just that Liz Frank after surgery, one, it's very sore all the time and pretty much for the rest of your life, according to doctors, and will you have that same explosion? So this will be another interesting guy that teams will have to dive into and get the medical on Fabian Moreau. Last guy, I love this guy. Jordan Payton, wide receiver, senior, 6 foot, 213 pounds. A lot of people have him in the later rounds, probably 5th, 6th round. I think he's better than that because he's a very good vertical threat and very consistent in his receptions with a young quarterback. Josh Rosen is a young guy, but yet when you look at Peyton, he's putting up good numbers pretty much every single week. His best week was against Arizona when he put up 7 receptions, over 115 yards, and had a touchdown. On the season, 31 receptions, 486 yards, and look at that average, 15.7 average with 4 TDs. So, he's a guy I would keep your eye on because he's very emotional. He plays with a lot of passion, and so far this year he's been very consistent. So I'd like to see if, when you look at Jordan Payton, if he can move up a little bit because I like his build at 6 foot, 213. He plays strong, good vertical threat, and he will compete for the football. So that's how we see it. What about the game in terms of the numbers? Coming off the bye week, you would like to think the Cal Bears are going to be ready. I would like to think that Goff is going to have a much better performance, but Jim Moore Jr. will have something cooked up defensively. UCLA needs to run the football. The Utes, as I mentioned, rushed for 265 yards against the Cal Bears, and that's going to be the key to victory. But doesn't mean that they're going to score a lot of points. When you've got a young quarterback, there's always going to be mistakes, and I think that's what UCLA is dealing with right now. So I've got the Cal Bears by about 10 in this game. I think it's going to be 33-21, something like that. They won't, in my opinion, they won't get up to their average of 40 points a game. I think Jim Mora and the UCLA Bruins will have something to say about that. But certainly Cal has the advantage by 10 points or more. So that's how I see it. The quarterback was really the big one to break down, and the defensive tackle Clark from UCLA. The quarterback, I think, is a little overhyped right now when you look at Cal. But we'll see where it goes. For the Real Football Network, I'm Jim Miller. Thanks for joining us.